Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to a um, ra- welcome back to a radio show. Actually, I haven't shot one of these in like 6 days because my voice and my nose and my nasal capacity wouldn't allow this, so I decided to not talk for a couple of days. Sorry, there's been no content, but hello. I wanted to kind of March was a successful month. We had about 150 something views, which was actually, I think it's the best March I think I've had in a while. So I kind of wanted to just end off March. I had enough views in hand, so I did 150 views is enough. You guys, thank you for the support. Thank you for my new viewers, and thank you for that one person that subscribed like 6 days ago when I actually last shot one of these. There is a Gran Turismo video up. I actually recorded the world's fastest minivan because there was a new content pack that came out on, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. Had to wait a little while. Had to check out the content pack. Um, and there'll be some more content now that there's a new update and there's more changes. I'm just gonna keep on pumping out the videos because Gran Turismo is just cool. I'm not gonna really do that. April Fools. I wasn't gonna cancel Gran Turismo. You guys freaking kidding me? Gran Turismo is the greatest game I think I ever bought. For $100, that game has brought me so much joy. So it's April 1st. It is back to um, business as usual. Thought I'd open with a hello video and a gear change show. I did not do one. I was going to do one on drifting. I don't want to do drifting because drifting is a bad thing. I want to talk about. I want to talk about a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a while, and one that I haven't shared, and um, one that I one that kind of got me into. You guys probably wanted to see. So how did I get into cars? So I've been doing the radio show for over a couple months now, and I never told you guys why I like cars. So what got me into them, how I started out, how it came to be back when I was younger. The reason, all right, so there's a number of reasons. There's a number of things that got me into the genre. Now, Gran Turismo did not get me into cars. Gran Turismo did not get me into cars. Cars were kind of no, Gran Turismo didn't get me into cars. Not in the slightest. Um, so when I was a kid, I had all sorts of fixations. I liked buses, I liked trains, I liked trucks, I especially love buses. I was obsessed with the Titanic for a number of years. Me being the middle school, me being the middle class guy that I was. I didn't know much about Ferraris. I didn't know much about Porsches, Aston Martins, and all that other stuff. I knew about a couple of things. I knew about I didn't know about Lamborghinis. I didn't know about any of this. I didn't know about any of this at all. I just thought the coolest. I I'm ashamed to admit it, but I thought the coolest car on the planet. Don't laugh. I thought the coolest car on the planet was a PT Cruiser. Yeah, I like the PT Cruiser. You know the little thing, the little failed thing that Chrysler had a couple years back. They killed it off. I think like 2000, like 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that. I used to like that little 2-liter 4-cylinder 5-speed Cruiser GT with about 190 horsepower. That was my car. That was my favorite car. Loved it to death. Wanted to own one. Wanted to own one when I got old enough to buy a car because I thought they were cheap. I thought they were cool looking. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it kind of looks like because it kind of looked like an old hot rod, actually. And for some odd reason, I like the shape of it. And everybody around me was like, "How could you like the PT Cruiser? Don't you like the Porsche? Don't you want a Porsche or a BMW or a Mercedes or something like that?" I had no idea what Mercedes. I didn't know what a Porsche was. I didn't know what a McLaren was. I didn't know what a Ferrari was. I didn't know what even a Lamborghini was. I thought a Lamborghini. I've heard of the word Lamborghini, but I never saw one because my brother's first grade teacher was named Miss Miss Lamborghini, and they thought she had one, and I never knew it. I think my brother showed me a poster one maybe when I was 7, and I'm like, that's. And I looked at it. It was all shapes and curves and stuff like that. Never really liked the look of the Lamborghinis, especially the Countach, and the Diablo. I always thought they were ugly, but when I looked at the PT Cruiser, I used to look on the internet. I used to look up all the reviews for it. I used to look at all the options. I was like, when I get my license, and this is back when I was 8. So PT Cruiser came out in like 98, 99. Yeah, so I was probably, I was 8 years old. Yeah, actually, I was 10. So I was like, oh, I hope this car's still around when I'm 16. Car was still around when I was 16, but the problem with it is I figured out that thing was a piece of garbage because everybody's like, oh, that's too slow. You want a Ferrari or a Porsche or something like that. The PT Cruiser, the reason why I like the look of it is because it kind of reminded me, is because it looks like the hot rods that I know and like today. For those of you who've seen the the old Ford sedan, big rear tires, skinny front tires, big zoom pipes in the front, open headers, that sort of thing, maybe supercharged. That sort of looked like one of those 50s hot rods, and it was always a cool thing. My dad always like, oh, it looks like an old hot rod from when I was a kid. I didn't even know what a hot rod was. I just thought a hot rod. My vision of a hot rod was something that had Matchbox car thing with big wheels, small front end, chrome bumpers, and all this other stuff. Matchbox cars, that sort of thing. That's what I thought what a hot rod was, and I thought hot rods had flames coming out of it. And then I got introduced to the Dodge Viper in 2001. And then the savior of all games, and I think it was like 2000. And this was around when the Dodge Viper was kicking everybody's ass in open wheel in GT racing over in America and over in Europe. This was during that era. Dodge Viper became my thing, and I remember racing Viper in Gran Turismo 3 Ace Back. And I think I remember racing it in the GT previews and all that other stuff on preview discs and stuff like that on friends of ours, their PlayStation. Remember racing that a couple of times. Remember really liking the Dodge Viper, loved it, and thought it was a cool car. Thought it was a mean looking car. I always liked it with the red or the blue. Rather the blue color with the white stripes or the black stripes or something like that. I always liked the Viper. It was always cool, and it was cool because it was the car that won a lot. I remember seeing it on TV one time, watching it beat these. I couldn't even say Porsche back then. I remember reading it. I remember I said what, and I said and I remember trying to pronounce the names to my dad after I watched the broadcast. And I said, I watched the Dodge Viper beat the Maz the Ma the Maserati or Maserati or the and then I couldn't even say them because I was so young. And Lamborghini I knew. Celine was, I said, I might have said Celine, I may have said Celine, I may have seen Celine, and I couldn't even pronounce it, but I could pronounce Dodge Viper, no problem. Um, and then, and I remembered some of the names from, and then I would remember saying, and I remember pronouncing some of the names like Audi, BMW. I really didn't see any. I really didn't know anybody with foreign cars. I thought Toyota. In fact, I thought Toyota was actually American because I didn't know what a Toyota was. I just thought they were cool looking things. I knew about Buick. I knew about Chevrolet. I know about Ford. Um, and I started learning about Corvette and stuff like that. I don't think it was till Gran Turismo, I think, but I think it was the Dodge Viper, the PT Cruiser, and the Corvette that kind of got me into that. Corvette kind of came into the Corvette phase. Kind of came in when I first watched them on TV in 2004 at Laguna Seca. I remember watching them at Le Mans, even though I didn't know what the Le Mans 24-hour was back then. So yeah, I learned. So yeah, I got into cars that way. It really kind of what cemented my love for them though was when I started watching the Corvette cars race, and I would watch Audi, Porsche, BMW, and Maserati, and um, names like Lola, which is a race car designer, and um, I'd watch these cars race, and then Aston Martin came along in 2005, which was great. Which is when I started watching sports car racing, which was 2005. It's kind of funny. I've been watching sports car racing for over since I was like 16 years old. So I've been into cars for over. So actually, I first started getting into cars in 1998, 99. So I've been into cars for, well, 2000, 2008 would be 10 years. 2018 would be 20 years. And so I've been almost into cars almost a good portion of my life. So, but I do credit the PT Cruiser for starting that whole thing. What's actually funny is when we were trying to figure out what cars we'd buy for, and figure out what we do for insurance and everything like that. So we actually, is one guy, I remember one person would get a Toyota or a Acura, or one kid, I remember kid Sasha, I remember he got a Ferrari that was like 50 grand, and I'm like, where are you gonna be at 50 grand, pal? I remember finding a PT Cruiser that was 2003. I remember finding a 98 PT Cruiser for like 10 grand, which I didn't even know what $10,000 was, let alone have it in my savings account back when I was a kid. So you gotta remember, when I was younger, most of the money usually came from birthdays, and most of the money came from birthdays or birthdays and stuff like that. And at that time, I had 16 birthdays. So, and I remember getting like $50. I remember getting $50 from my Nana and Grandpa, and getting $50 from my dad's dad. So that was like $100, and that's like $1,600 plus graduation gifts and christening money and all that other stuff. So I probably didn't have that much money when I was 16 years old. So I was basically never going to afford a $10,000 car, not even close to insure one. But it was always good. And I think I remember my teacher saying, you were actually the most frugal out of everything. Like, you actually knew what you were doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Because I remember one girl wanted to buy an SUV, was a gas guzzler. One girl wanted to buy a minivan because, oh, I may have kids. I'm thinking of kids, maybe 8, 9 years. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh yes. I'm like, oh yeah. Stupid decision. A couple of these stupid decisions on prom night later, and you might have that. You might have that realization. Um, so yeah, I remember that back when I was younger. Um, and yeah, so video games have had an influence over me. Um, my my grandfather, actually, my dad's dad, who just passed away, Lord rest him, in December, actually November. We laid him to rest in December. He was actually a huge NASCAR fan, and you guys are probably wondering what really got you into gaming. Well, NASCAR did. 1998. I will never forget it. Christmas 1998. I remember opening NASCAR 98 for the first time. But it was my never the same. It was actually a game that actually got me started with that. And I think it was one of the early Gran Turismo games over a friend's house that kind of got things started. I remember 007 Racing being one of those, and I remember driving the Aston Martin, the Lotus, and all this other stuff. And I remember Agent of the Fire came out in 2001. I remember driving the Aston Martin DB5 and stuff like that. So it was gaming, unfortunately. I didn't know about cinema back then. I thought the coolest movie, back in 1999, 2000, I thought the coolest thing in the world was Star Wars back then. So my scope of something cool with Star Wars, I didn't know about any of the movies or any of the cool stunt movies and stuff like that. I didn't know about Bullet. I didn't know about James Bond or anything like that. So, needless to say, I didn't know how that would transform my life and kind of get me into cars and actually get me to spark for an idea. Now, I was originally going to go to college to actually go into automotive business, but then I ended up doing social work and psychology and a bunch of other detours. And many hours later, and many years later, and a couple of regrets later, we have plenty of them, but I have a very few. Not, I have a few, but too few to mention. To quote Frank Sinatra, dealing with friendships and saving a damsel in distress later. That sometimes happens. A couple of detours. I've been pointed back to doing automotive, not just electric cars, but also getting into it before, because we don't know how long it's going to take for the whole thing to take hold, so we have no idea. But yeah, I remember NASCAR 98 getting me into it, Gran Turismo getting me into it, sports cars was a thing, and then I learned all about that. And then eventually I learned that you could actually have a career because both my grandfathers were mechanics. My dad's very good with a wrench when it comes to a car. In fact, a lot of us are good with the wrench when it comes to mechanical stuff, which is why I like to take things apart. Anything on wheels, I'm driven to get to know. So I get fixated on the floor machine at work. So if that doesn't tell you anything, I love mechanical bits. So, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to rectify them and do whatever. So, So yeah, that's kind of how I got into cars. So if you guys want to know the origins of how I got into cars and how I love them so much, now you know. And it won't die till the day I die, which hopefully will be maybe 50, 60 years from now. So because I want to enjoy a full life of being happy and being good. So over the next 2 or 3 years, that'll come true when I go back to school and when I get a new career and hopefully go on with my life. So, but yeah, sorry guys, I didn't record the last 6 days. Sorry, there's been a draft. There's been a drift. I hope you guys are ready for uploads, uploads, uploads. Gran Turismo is going to be action packed. I've got plenty of content. I'm probably going to upload the Mustang stuff on Monday, and then I'm going to finish the Mustang. And I'm just going to do miscellaneous stuff, but I'm going to tune cars up, and I'm going to do lap times and do stuff. So please do watch the world's fastest minivan. You're going to watch me slow that thing down and then speed the thing up. I mean, it's hilarious how slow this thing is when you put all the weight on and you take all the horsepower down on it. It's pretty hilarious. But it's really fast and I really do good. I'm hoping to get some more money in the game so I can buy some of the classic cars and tune those up and do it. I think I'm going to tune a Mazda that I got, and I'm going to try to do a couple other cars. There's a ton of projects I want to do and try to things I want to aim for in the game. So do look for that content soon. And when I can find a way to put more funds into the game, like grinding sessions and stuff like that, I will start making money, and then I'll obviously start putting projects together. Because as you guys know, in the real world, if you guys want to put money into projects, you obviously have to spend money to make it. So spend money to make it, and obviously do that. So yes, I thank you guys. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But for now, my throat probably will go kaput. See you guys later.